are not worthy. Neil Gaiman. We are not worthy of you. Hi, and welcome to episode 9 of the Geeky Cauldron. My name is Alyssa, and today I will be reviewing Nightmare in Silver, the episode of Doctor Who that was written by Neil Gaiman, who wrote The Doctor's Wife. This episode brought us the return of the Cybermen, and I think I'm not going to be the first person to say that for the first time in a long time, the Cybermen were actually scary. We've seen the Cybermen quite a few times since the reboot in 2005, but they haven't really been scary like they were back in the 60s. That fear of the creepy, hulking, brainless, emotionless, logically thinking monsters encased in silver were kind of lost to like a clunkier, like stupider Cyberman, like the kind of Cyberman that gets like eradicated by the Daleks. Neil Gaiman changed that. He has made the Cybermen terrifying again. So, since the last episode ended with Artie and Angie, the two kids that Clara babysits or nannies or whatever it is that she does, finding out about Clara's escapades, this episode begins with the Doctor, Clara, and the two kids kind of going on like a family field trip fun day thing. He brings them to Hedwig's World, which is basically like Six Flags in space. And initially they think they're on a moon base, and that's said in the first couple seconds. And that's a nod to the old 1967 classic Who episode of the Cybermen with that same title. As soon as they land, some guy in a top hat who looks like he's supposed to work at an amusement park anyway sticks his head out of a fake rock and is like, "Oh, are you my liftoff planet?" And they're like, no. And then these soldiers come running out screaming about how this planet is off limits, it's a completely locked down planet, what are you doing here? And the Doctor pulls out something he hasn't used in a really long time, his psychic paper. Now, the psychic paper instantaneously works. The head of the soldier people says, "Oh, wow, Imperial Consulate, cool, I can't believe you're here." And she mentions something about praying for the return of an emperor, so we know that there's some sort of missing emperor in this whole picture that kind of just pieced out and decided not to be an emperor any longer. The guy in the top hat sticks his head back out after the soldiers leave, and he's like, "Come on, like, come check out my stuff." And you see this beautiful shot of this worn down, like, scary, empty amusement park with, like, these broken roller coasters and papers everywhere, and it was really eerie and really beautiful. Also, can't forget to mention, what was on Clara's skirt? I couldn't tell if they were like bouquets of roses or some other flower, or if Moffat is just like intentionally screwing with us because they were red flowers and she's got frickin' red flowers everywhere and it looked like roses. Wembley's World of Wonders, Wembley is the guy in the top hat, is this kind of wax museum-y thing, this mishmash collection of all stuff that he's acquired, and he takes the kids through it, and the kids actually seem interested. I mean, Artie seems interested. Angie is a moody, annoying teenage bitch, and if there is one flaw in this entire episode, it's that she was way too much the stereotypical teenager that hated everything. Like, you're on a different planet, you just traveled in time, be a little bit more grateful and stop worrying about, like, Instagram not working. So, Wembley asks if anybody plays chess, and the Doctor's like, "Oh, I want to play," but Artie's like, "I'm on my school chess team." And so he brings him into a room, and there is a figure that's draped in cloth, and he's like, "Let me present to you the wonder of the age, the miracle of modernity. We defeated them all 1,000 years ago, but now he's back to destroy you. Behold the enemy," and he pulls the cloth off, and the Doctor goes, "Cyberman! Duck!" And they duck, and that starts the episode. Boom, cue the TARDIS flying through the time vortex. And I have to mention that the Doctor Who opener is the only opener of any television show that I tape that I don't fast forward through. I watch it every single time because it's just amazing, and that music is the kind of music that'll just get you excited. And of course, the opening ends and you find out, he's like, "It's not living, it's not alive, it's an empty shell, it's just here to destroy you at chess." Does anyone want to play him in chess? He's never been defeated. It's an empty shell of a Cyberman, and he opens up the little door underneath where he's sitting, and he's like, "Nothing in here," and he's like, "Nothing back here." And so the kid sits down to play him, and he makes a mistake in the first move and gets caught. And the guy's like, "What do you think? How does it work?" And you find out that there is a tiny dwarf inside a little console-y door in the center underneath the Cyberman, and he's controlling it. He's actually really good at chess, apparently. And the Doctor's like, "Oh, there you go." He's like, "I'm the puppet. Whoops, sorry." introduces himself as Porridge. Should have recognized Warwick Davis, Porridge, as Professor Phileas Flitwick. If you didn't, shame upon you, and now I'm telling you, so now you know. Anyway, Wembley tells the Doctor that there are 3 Cybermen in his collection, and you see these kind of creepy bugs that are chilling out along the walls that are clearly watching them. And he walks them through more wax figures and shows them the king. You know, this is the king, this is the emperor, and they're like, he doesn't seem very nice, and Porridge is like, oh, don't say anything about the imperial family, you could get arrested, and they're like, oh, well, sorry. We find out that the girl is a total pain in the ass. She keeps talking about how she's bored, and this sucks, and space sucks, and Clara sucks. It's like, hello? You're on a fucking TARDIS, flying through space. Are you not entertained? The Doctor does what any doctor would do, and after the kids are done playing in the anti-grav chamber, and Clara wants to leave, he's like, we gotta stay and figure this out, because there's funny insects crawling about, and I want to add them to my funny insect collection, which I am starting right now. He takes the kids into the room that has the completely immobile Cybermen, and he's like, this is a good place to nap, I think you should lay down here. So the kids take a nap, which means Artie lays down, and Angie, like a total bitch, decides to run off and do what she's not supposed to do, because even though the Doctor walks into the room using his sonic screwdriver as like a scary flashlight to try and freak them out, and says, don't wander off, because then someone will have to come save you, and she decides as soon as he walks away to wander off. Wembley goes back to the chess-playing Cybermen and readjusts the chess in case, I guess, anyone's ever going to come and play again. And he's talking about how the sandwich that Artie gave him, instead of paying a coin to play the chess, is the only thing he's gotten all day, but it's better than no sandwich. And he takes a swig of his flask and starts fixing the chess pieces, and all of a sudden the Cyberman arms grab him and hold on to him, and all those creepy bugs start pouring out of its face and crawling up Wembley's arm, and you're like, oh, great. And then in a deeper Cyberman voice, a scarier Cyberman voice, it goes, upgrade in progress. The Cybermen are back. As the upgrade is in progress, Clara and Porridge are discussing this black hole that's up in the sky, and he's talking about how this planet was a cheap planet to buy and put an amusement park on because it was trashed in the Cyber War. We fought the Cybermen for years, and every time we defeated them, they would just upgrade and come back and destroy us. It's hard to fight an enemy that uses your armies as spare parts. You find out that Porridge seems to know a little bit more than the guy that's just supposed to be controlling like a Cyberman puppet should know. And he tells Clara about the Cyber War and how they basically had to blow up an entire galaxy to get rid of the Cybermen, and how he doesn't pity the man who had to make that decision. You find out that Angie went to the barracks, and she doesn't even just go to the barracks and go like, hey, what's going on in here? She opens up her entrance into the barracks by going, I'm bored. You're like, okay, so all of us are meant to entertain you? You are annoying as hell. I actually wanted her to get murdered by a Cyberman, like only after 5 minutes in the episode. The brother, who has now been alone because his sister's a total dick, starts getting a little bit freaked out. And he's like, well, I'm not scared, I'm just going to go turn the lights on. And after he turns the lights on, he gets grabbed from behind by a Cyberman. Very quickly after that, Clara and the Doctor find Angie, and Angie does some more teen angsty things, like, I hate you, you always ruin all my fun. I'm going to tweet about how much I hate you. As soon as Clara and the Doctor get there, a Cyberman comes into the barracks, and everybody there is freaking the F out. And now you see that the Cybermen just don't have deeper voices. They can move, and they can move very fast. After a while, the slow march doesn't resonate as scarily anymore when you've seen it happen so many times. So this Cyberman can actually shoot forward. And when it first happened, I was like, go! Like, I almost spilled my drink. I was freaking out. One of the coolest shots of this episode was this scene, because they slow down and basically freeze all of the people, and you just see the Cybermen like speed walking and like strutting through all these people very quickly, and they're all like, oh my god, no, and he's just like zoop, 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 picks up Angie, throws her over his shoulder, and runs out. Clara's like, what the hell do we do? And the Doctor's like, well, I'm gonna go get the kids. You're officially in charge because I'm the Imperial Consulate, so you're in charge. Don't let them blow up the planet and try not to die. I thought this was interesting considering Clara sucked so much at negotiating with the Ice Warrior in the Cold War that she was now all of a sudden in charge of an army. Albeit you find out that this army is a punishment platoon. Basically all the people that acted up in the army got sent to this planet so they couldn't F anything up. So they're kind of the worst people you would ever want on your side if Cybermen were attacking. I think you get another peek into just how insufferable Angie is when you see that she's been brought to the same room that her brother is in, and as she's over the shoulder of the Cyberman, she's like, put me down, I hate you! You're like, You are such a teenager. Go write about it in your friggin' journal. Who says that? He has now been upgraded and has a little cyber thingy on the side of his face, and Wembley is like whole face is taken over, and they take Angie as well. And the doctor sees one of those little bugs and talks to it like, I hope you're watching this because I'm gonna come get the kids. They are under my protection. He gets to the center hub where this frequency is being transmitted to all of the little cyber mites. That's what he calls them. They're not cyber mats anymore, like those bigger things you saw in the Stormageddon episode. They're cyber mites. They're like little tiny bugs. So you're seeing how they evolve when they have to. He gets to where the cyber mites are being controlled and finds Artie, Angie, and Wembley, and they're all obviously taken over. And Wembley starts talking. Oh, we needed children. In case you didn't know. We needed children, and they had stopped coming. And he says, hail to the doctor, savior of the Cybermen. Wembley says, we're undefeatable now. We've evolved enough to the point where we can't be defeated. And the doctor's like, listen, nobody's undefeatable. And he's like, well, you know, the children were all fun and great because we needed their minds and their imaginations. But your brain, now your brain would really be helpful. And at this point, the doctor's like, can't convert non-humans. Can't happen. Just can't. And Wembley's like, I mean, that used to be the case, but like I said, we've evolved. And all current cyber units can use pretty much any living composition. And this is where the fun begins. This is where Matt Smith, if this is indeed his last season, holy crap, he's going out with a bang. This is by far his best acting job to date, and arguably one of the best doctor acting episodes ever out of any of the doctors. I'm putting it out there right now, one of the best. You get a Neil Gaiman version, a Doctor Who version of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Because Wembley, as soon as he says that, yeah, well, we can use anyone, throws a bunch of the cybermites on the doctor. He writhes around, and when he comes back up, he's got half Cyberman shit on his face. Now, I think a lot of people had a little bit of an issue with the fact that a Cyberman doctor was so over the top and so charismatic still, even though Cybermen are supposed to be extremely logical and emotionless. And I think what I kind of understood it as was the doctor's character is one of his most prominent features about him. Like, how he acts, his personality, those are things that are nearly impossible to stifle. So, when the doctor was taken over by the Cybermen, they had to have like a shared personality. There had to be doctor in the cyber doctor. So what ended up happening wasn't really like a Cyberman doctor who was just like TARDIS, police box, Clara. But what you end up getting with a cyber doctor is a look into what the doctor would be like if he were actually evil. Let's be honest, he's not too far from it. There's a fine line between what he does on a daily basis and a bad person. And I think that's important. You need to understand that the doctor, he lies, and the doctor, he makes mistakes, and he is the kind of person who keeps Clara around because she's some sort of science project that interests him. And he, as an evil doctor, was a ridiculously exacerbated version of himself, and it was awesome. Like, Matt Smith was amazing. And they represented the switch. Now, you have a fight at this point between the doctor and the cyber planner, which is what he becomes when he gets the cybermites all over his face. And the battle is represented in the doctor's mind, because he says you're in the Cyberia right now, which is the database of all Cybermen things, but the battle that's going on is really the battle inside the doctor's head. And so you see the bad doctor and the good doctor standing in front of each other. And there's all circular Gallifreyan coming up behind them, and Clara's picture comes up, and the evil doctor's like, why are you thinking about her so much? And then he instantly blocks her out to protect her. That's a pretty impressive mental block. Why are you fighting me so much, though? You should just relax. Be happy. You're being incorporated into the Cyberia. You're a cyber planner now. I am the most efficient cyber planner. Oh, he's like, I don't like to call myself cyber planner. I think I'm going to call myself Mr. Clever. Now, obviously I laughed because I was like, Mr. Clever? That's not scary at all. But then I thought, Doctor and Mr. And I thought Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. The Doctor and Mr. Clever. And it's the Doctor who is good, Dr. Jekyll, and Mr. Clever who is bad, Mr. Hyde. So it was this mental struggle between good and evil. And it was very much like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And God, Matt Smith is doing such a good job at being evil. He's just so believable. Mr. Clever accesses all of the Doctor's memories of his past regeneration. So once again, we are getting nods to old school Doctor stuff. And you see every single Doctor, 1 through 10, pop up. And the Doctor's like, I'm not giving you access to this information. And Mr. Clever's like, well, I'm getting it. So he goes, okay, I could regenerate right now. A blast of regeneration energy would blow you out of my brain, would eat up all your little mites, and it would be fine. But, you know, use this one up. I don't know what's going to be left of me after, so I don't know. Maybe I will. I'll do it if I have to. So the other, Mr. Clever is like, well, it appears we're at a bit of a stalemate. We each control 49.881% of this brain. 0.238% of the brain is up for grabs. Whoever gets this part of the brain gets the whole thing. Oh my God. It's literally a tug of war. The Doctor asks Mr. Clever, well, do you play chess? He's like, I have chess in my database. Yeah, I know how to play chess. He's like, winner takes all. You can't access that portion of the brain without winning. And the Doctor makes a deal with him. You win, you get my brain. I win, you get out of my brain, and nobody dies. Nobody dies. What does that make you think of? Oh, the Doctor dances. Nobody dies. We have the typical lonely soldiers about to die scene shortly after, where a lonely soldier dies by a Cyberman who detaches his hand and then it attacks her face. So we're getting a picture, a glimpse into what the new Cybermen are capable of. We get a quick look into how the soldiers and Clara are doing. And you find out that since the Cybermen have been extinct for 1,000 years, they only have one anti-cyber gun that doesn't have that much charge in it. And they have 5 hand pulsers, which are these little things they wear in their hand that lets out a pulse in the middle of it. So you could smack it on the back of a Cyberman's head and it'll deactivate him. And by the way, we also have a bomb which will blow up the whole planet. Apparently, protocol is if you can't kill a Cyberman, you immediately blow up the planet. And Clara's like, well, that's not an option right now. Give me the remote for it. So she's walking around with the remote to detonate the bomb. By the way, the captain of the soldiers can also detonate it by voice activation. So you know she's going to try to at some point because she's a bitch. My apologies for the break in time, but my camera died, and then the Ranger game started, and then I started drinking. So we're gonna pick up where we left off, which was with the Mr. Clever mentioning to the Doctor, by the way, don't you realize you can be recreated from the holes that you've left in everyone's databases? And he's like, oh, crap. And then the Doctor's like, I'm going to win because I know things that you don't know. I know that the very old models of the Cybermen, which is true, this was used in old episodes of Doctor Who, they had a weakness to gold and cleaning products like nail polish remover. And Mr. Clever's like, cleaning products is just a secret weapon, that's hilarious. And he's like, no, gold. And he takes the golden ticket and smacks himself in the face with it, and right on the thingy that's on his face, and it like short circuits it. And he's like, okay, I'll bring the chessboard, all of you people come with me. You find out that Porridge is actually the emperor that ran away. I mean, they've been insinuating that very early on, but you pretty much figure it out at this point in time, because the bitch who wants to blow everything up tries to blow everything up and then gets shot by a Cyberman. And this is where you kind of get the old idea of like the Doctor and his followers and a bunch of people trying to just survive against like droves of enemies. They go to Natty Longshore's comical castle. Clara decides that's the most defensible place since it actually has a moat, and that's where they're holding up trying to defend themselves from some Cybermen. They actually use the anti-cyber gun to kill a Cyberman, which is pretty cool. And there's a scene where you realize that the Cybermen, they don't just detach their hands, they can actually take their head off and leave it to chill for a little bit, and then put their head back on and be fine. So the Doctor shows back up. He's like, good news, bad news, good news kind of situation. The good news is, I've kidnapped the Cyber Planner, and I'm sort of kind of controlling this Cyberman. The bad news, the Cyber Planner is in my head, and the other bad news is that the kids you're supposed to be in charge of are sort of in a walking coma. And then he has this funny moment where he's like, but the good news is, they're slowly patching the issue with the gold thing, and more Cybermen are coming. Oh wait, that's not good news. But I'm gonna win my chess match! Someone tie me up, but I need my hands free for chess. And then they tie him up to a chair, and he's like, perfect, hands free for chess, now I can play. Clara's like, are you playing chess with yourself? And he's like, yep, and I'm winning. And he rips the golden ticket off, and then he gets all evil again. And the transformation is so instantaneous and so perfect. And this part, as a fan, Don't tell me you weren't geeking so hard you almost peed your pants, because he goes through a couple of old regens, kind of like in the Ganger episodes, the Almost People, where he does like, do you want a jelly baby? And he does like talking like the old regens. He says, I'm the doctor, like 10. This time he starts speaking in a northern accent, and you know that he's doing 9. He goes, fantastic, I'm the cyber planner. And she's like, you're not the doctor. He's like, I'm in control of the mouth. Allonsy! And you're like, oh my god, yes! Like, you're doing 9, you're doing 10. You're only doing it because you're bad, but you're still doing it. And once again, we're getting back to 50th anniversary feel. Everything's coming back. Everything's coming full circle. There's echoes of everything. And he tells her, you're the impossible girl. And then he goes on a little bit of a rant, and as he's going on about how you're not going to make this, and you're not going to make it through this, and you're not going to be okay, the doctor, who's obviously still fighting for control, writes, hit me on the piece of paper, and Clara slaps him across the face, and he comes back, and he's like, hello, great, perfect, Clara. He explains to her a couple of things that are going on, and then Mr. takes over again, and Mr. Clever starts acting like a total asshole, and he's like, now excuse me, I have a chess game to win, and you need to die pointlessly and far away from home, and he pokes her on the head. Kind of a dick. Clara decides to electrocute the water around the moat. She's basically trying to build up defenses while the doctor is in a chess match against himself. Obviously, I think you noticed that the doctor was the white chess pieces and Mr. Clever was the black chess pieces. I mean, that had to be done because white is good and black is evil, according to ancient times. I don't actually think that. A ton of Cybermen start coming, and like a ton. Mr. Clever says, wakey, wakey, and wakes up 1 million Cybermen. I'm sorry, 3 million Cybermen. So, yeah, we're about to be totally fucked. And Clara's sitting there trying to figure out how to defend the place, and then the doctor calls her in, and it's not the doctor, it's Mr. Clever pretending to be the doctor, and he's like, oh, do you have some sort of remote detonator for that bomb? That would be awesome for me to have. And she's like, say something that only the doctor would know. And at this point, I grabbed a drink of water right before this little part started. And you know what part I'm going to say, because no matter how much I miss Rose Tyler, no matter how much I am getting I Create Myself and Circular Gallifreyan tattooed on my back in 2 weeks, by the way, I still love to see the doctor in love because he deserves it. So even though this wasn't genuine, he's like, I guess, Clara, I'm the only one that knows how I feel about you. You're so funny. Always so funny, and you're so pretty. And I'm starting to like you. And then she slaps him. During this whole part, though, before she smacks him, because I don't realize that he's bad right away, I am literally with my glass in my mouth like this. Couldn't stop drinking because I was waiting for something to happen. I was like, oh my god, drinking. Obviously nothing happened. He then takes the remote from her hand forcibly because he's not in control of his left hand, crushes it into dust, and then goes, he got what he wanted. And she's like, what do you mean he got what he wanted? And this was so scary. He is all red-eyed and watery-eyed and screaming, and spit's coming out of his mouth, and he just goes, good news, boys and girls, they're here. It was very much like Jack Nicholson in The Shining. Mr. Clever, after that, is like, well, it's been an education being inside your brain, but now it's time for the end game. My Cybermen are going to kill everyone. BT dubs. And he's like, listen, I already have this whole thing set up. You can take the bishop, you can limp on for a little bit longer, you can sacrifice the queen, get the children back, but you know in 5 moves it's checkmate, and I get your mind. And so the doctor, being the doctor, sacrifices the queen, gets the children back. The cyber doctor is like, your emotions again, you're a fool, you've lost the game. All of these emotions just for 2 children that don't matter. Now the Cybermen are breaking into Natty Longshore's comical castle, and Porridge / the Emperor decides he wants to try and protect the kids who have now been restored back to their normal state from Wembley, who tries to attack them. And he kind of like hits Wembley in the back of the leg and then goes flying because Wembley kicks him. The doctor says, well, sacrificing the queen was the best decision I've ever made because Time Lords invented chess. And if you don't find my trap, I beat you in 3 moves. Mr. Clever's like, that's not possible. You know what I'm going to do? Let's shut down all these Cybermen that are slowly making their way to killing everyone. And literally when I say slowly, I mean he shut them all down as they were reaching out to grab Clara. And when he shuts them down, he uses all of their energy as processing power because he wants to figure out this problem. He wants to use 3 million Cybermen minds to try and figure out what the hell this chess problem could be. The doctor's like, either way, I beat you in 3 moves. Move 1, turn on sonic screwdriver. Move 2, activate the pulsar thingy. Move 3, amplify the pulsar thingy. And then he has this sort of, wait, I've got to put my beer down for this. He's got the pulsar thing on his hand because he grabbed it from Porridge. When Porridge went flying, he went flying right underneath the table, and he grabs it from Porridge, and he's like fighting with his own hand, and then he goes, ha ha ha, see ya, and then smacks himself in the face and shocks this part of his face, and the thingy falls off, and he's back to being the doctor. Yay! He won! Except the Cybermen are coming back to kill them all. Clara walks in to see if it's still the doctor, and she asks him, do you think I'm pretty? And he goes, no, you're too short and bossy, and your nose is all funny. And she's like, I'll take it. Okay, you don't think I'm pretty, but he does. So the Emperor / Porridge activates the bomb by speaking, and the bomb has 80 seconds. He's like, 80 seconds is long enough for the mothership to locate me, warp to my location, and pick me up. And as he's talking, you see that they transform, or they are brought to the mothership. And that's pretty much the end. They blow up the whole planet. The Doctor and them get back on the TARDIS. Except there's one Cybermite floating in space still. So the Neil Gaiman episode was not only an amazing episode, it didn't just give us a whole new background story, a whole new legacy of the Cybermen. It also gave us the opportunity to fight them again in the future a lot more. Thank you, Neil Gaiman. We see that Porridge tries to propose to Clara. That doesn't go over very well. The Doctor doesn't seem happy about it, which is nice. Once again, we're getting towards the point where he really likes her. And if you didn't believe me that he has feelings for her, if you didn't think it, even after Journey to the Center of the TARDIS, with all of the worrying and the head kissing, even after the Crimson Horror, with all of the worrying and the head kissing, if you didn't believe me, by the end of this episode, if you don't think the Doctor has feelings for Clara, you're crazy. Because what does he say after she leaves the TARDIS and says, see you next Wednesday, which, by the way, kind of seems like they, go on dates, doesn't it? What does he say but, the impossible girl, a mystery wrapped in an enigma, squeezed into a skirt that's just a little bit too tight. And then he breaks into this shit-eating grin, like, I'm thinking about her butt, I'm thinking about her hiney. And then he smacks himself out of it, and he's like, who are you? Whatever, bye. And that's the end. Except, it's not. Because the season finale, the Doctor goes to Trenzalore. And you need to do yourself a favor right now and go on the BBC website and watch He Said, She Said, the prequel to The Name of the Doctor. Because you know for a fact that Clara finds out his name, that Clara finds out who he is, and that the Doctor finds out who Clara is and why she's in his life. I won't tell you anymore, you have to watch it, but go watch He Said, She Said right now, or She Said, He Said, whichever fucking one it is. Watch it right now, it's on the BBC website, it's really easy to find, I'll even link it below. The trailer for next week, you see River Song's tombstone, you see the Doctor crying, you see Strax and Madame Vastra fighting each other, and you see, once again, the great intelligence. I'm coming! I gotta go watch the Ranger game. Cheers.